Well, welcome back to ADIPEC on air here at the Wood Stand. It's day 3. It is brilliant to be here, and I'm delighted to have with me Ken Gilmartin, CEO of Wood. Ken, welcome to ADIPEC.
Colin, as always, delighted to be here, and what a fantastic setup that we have here. It's just amazing.
It's pretty overwhelming, right? As you walk around, there's so many people, so much going on. And Ken, you've just finished a panel, and we'll want to talk about that. But before we do that, I think I remember this time last year we were talking about the World Series, and I think I ended up on the right side of that with the Phillies being beaten by the Astros. And now I'm realizing that coming up this weekend is another important sporting event that we need to discuss, which is the Scotland-Ireland game as to who moves forward in the World Cup.
Yeah.
I might go into that with a little bit less arrogance, but I'm tempted. I just want to hear what you've got to say about that before we get into the meat of all of this.
It's so funny. Somebody just asked me before I came on stage whether the Celtic cousins were going to do something to knock out South Africa, and I said no, that's not going to happen. That's going to be a full-blooded confrontation and a full-blooded peace. So look, Ireland are doing really well. I don't know what the stats are, right? But they've won so many of the test match, but they're going to lose at some stage. Scotland are always one of those teams that can outperform on the day. So, look, Ireland should win. That does not mean Ireland will win.
Well, we'd love to be the ones that get in the way of that, but let's see.
I'm sure.
Let's see what happens. Hopefully, this environment is a sporting omen that we can count on. Anyway, listen. Much more importantly, right now. Just finished this panel. Been looking at rethinking strategies for the energy security and energy transition, and I guess the panel we had was focused in on the supply chain and what role that they play. Just keen to hear your reflections on what was talked about, what you took away from the time as part of the strategic conference.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the conversation was around energy transition and the pace of energy transition, and is the supply chain ready? And I think, look, the message that I had, was very much around, yeah, we're ready, bring it on. I mean, I think, from an engineering standpoint, from a design standpoint, where we are with our subject matter expertise from a decarbonization standpoint, where we are with hydrogen, where we are in our traditional energy security pieces, because I think the other big bit we talked about was, there is this transition that needs to happen. And for this transition to happen, you need to continue to have traditional oil and gas for a long period of time. But in that, we have to look at the carbon intensity and decarbonize there as well. So, look, I think that was the conversation. And I think the other bit was a little bit around, the geographies.
Yeah.
And where is this going to play? And I think when you look at where we're positioned as Wood, where we have our strength, the geographies that we cover, we're in all of the right markets. We're in all of the right geographies. We have all of the right technology. We have all of the right people. So I think, let's bring it on.
Yeah, just on that geography point, I mean, there was quite a bit of discussion over the past couple of days around things like the IRA in the US. We've talked about this before, even on the podcast. I think we've talked about this before. We're here in the Middle East. Keen to hear your thoughts on that. And then also just the other thing that I think was interesting was, based on the panel, there was some concern around Europe, I think would be fair to say, in some of the discussions from the contributors. So give me your kind of geographical lowdown.
Yeah, look, I think I said it on the main stage as well. When you look at ambition and the ability to do things quickly, it's clear that the Middle East has pressed that I believe button, not just in energy transition, not just in decarbonizing existing assets, right, but also in that energy transition space. And you look at what they're trying to do from a carbon capture, utilization, and storage standpoint. You look at what they're planning to do in hydrogen. So it's clear that they're moving, and it's clear that they're moving quickly. So I put them kind of preeminently and ahead of everywhere else. I think the Inflation Reduction Act in the US definitely has created a stimulus that's also accelerating movement there. I think for the US, there still are some regulatory issues that they need to go through. Planning permission, all that kind of stuff needs to be solved. But there's an ambition there. And again, money is flowing in the US, also from an energy security, but definitely in that energy transition space. I think in Europe, Europe announced, particularly in the EU, the Green Deal. I think that's really more around a policy type piece rather than a clear subsidy. I think the conversation in Europe was the intent is there. Europe kind of came out of the gates on energy transition ahead of everywhere else in the world, and probably had made some mistakes along the ways, right? So haven't had gained as much traction. But I think the Green Deal that the EU have come up with is going to help also provide some stimulus to accelerate into Europe, but a little bit behind. I think for the UK, some interesting things coming out of the existing government. I mean, it was great to see those carbon capture projects being approved. But I think from a UK standpoint, there's more to come, right? Energy security, meeting energy transition as well. So I think the overarching piece is, people don't want to get left behind in the transition, but the pace is going to be a little bit different depending on the geographies that you have and the ability to be able to afford it.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I thought was interesting was our friends at OMV were also on the panel and made this comment that talked about the sort of the issue of moving from theory into practice. And I thought it was really insightful that, there's been a lot of theoretical discussion, but not necessarily making it real in terms of practice. From an energy transition perspective, what's preventing us moving from talking about a lot of good things to actually moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, and I think, look, a lot of it is that piece of, in the energy transition space right now, I think the actual return on the investment is not clear. And I think if you're asking CEOs of companies that need to invest, you have to look at it from a return on investment as number one. And if that return on investment isn't crystal clear, it becomes a question mark. I mean, the second piece is obviously there's a social value that you need to have, and the world is on that journey to net zero, and everybody wants to play their part on that. Yeah. But from a CEO, where you've got money to invest, you have to have visibility on return on investment. And I think that's been a little bit grey. People haven't been sure. I talk to a lot of our peers in the space that we play in, and we've all come up with new and novel ways to lose money in energy transition, right? So it needs to be sustainable. It needs to be clear. It needs to be a good return on investment. And at the same time, we have to get to net zero.
It's interesting that you raised that. There was a discussion. The moderator was talking about how this was maybe one of the most pragmatic panels that she had been part of. And I think there's something about, what are the practical steps we need to take now to start moving on all of this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, first of all, if you look at the various different geographies where you're starting to see government policy joining up, right, to be clear in terms of ambition and scale and what they want to do. And that then now has to translate into capital being invested, clear capital, clear projects, clear, real opportunity that spades and shovels in the ground. The piece that we talk about from a carbon capture, utilization and storage, we've done more than 200 FEED studies. Of those 200 FEED studies, 30 of them have become projects. You need to get to that scale. You need to get to that kind of ability to adapt and adopt. And I think that's the next piece. Again, it's that clear, crystallized return on investment to be able to match the world's ambition, which is to get to net zero.
And so the supply chain is important in all of this, right? What role does the supply chain have in taking the world on this journey? And are we ready? Do we have the resources and the scale and that we would require to make that happen?
We're the designers, we're the engineers, we're the consultants, we're the constructors, we're the commissioners, we're the operators. We are the pragmatic pioneers. The whole industry and what we serve has been based on delivery. It's what we do, and it's what we're expert at. I think for us, it's to continue to have that visibility on the pipeline, to concede the courage and commitment that you have from our clients to continue to invest. We're ready, right? We're ready. We're the engine of the energy transition, and the engine's ready to go.
It's good. Everybody who comes on our podcast this week, we've been asking the question, the theme is decarbonizing faster together. I guess I'm keen to hear from you. What's the one thing that we need to be doing faster? What would you, if we could do one thing right now as an industry, how would we get to decarbonization better?
You can talk to the tactics, right? You can talk to, is it flaring reduction? Is it electrification? Is it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? I think there's I think there's a whole series of kind of pragmatic and tactical steps that you need to do. Look, but my version is belief. All right, we got to believe. And we got to believe that in order for our planet to sustain is that we need to get to net zero. However, we need to be pragmatic in understanding that we need energy security to do that. So we need to believe that decarbonization and reducing the carbon intensity of what we're doing in traditional fossil fuel has to become central plank of what it is that we're doing. That's the thing that I think that it's that belief that we need to do this.
And I guess there was some discussion about doing these in parallel, right? That this is not an either or. BP have this nice phrase of it's and not or in terms of energy security and energy transition.
There's a parallel path, right? We need fossil fuel, we need oil, we need gas for a period of time. We need to continue to grow energy transition. We need to continue to grow the ability not just to create energy in energy transition, but also to be able to move it. Like think of it from a hydrogen standpoint, right? You make it, you move it, and then you have to use it. Yeah. Carbon capture is the exact same piece. You capture it, you move it, and then you have to sequester it, use it. You got to be able to join that up. There's a lot of work to do from an infrastructure standpoint to be able to facilitate that. Think of offshore wind coming onshore without any infrastructure to enable that to be connected to the grid. All that stuff has to happen in order for energy transition to continue to grow. How do you store? That needs to continue in parallel, continues to grow as we decarbonize oil, as we continue to look at how we get better and more efficient from a gas standpoint, and that starts to shrink. But there's a parallel path for decades.
Maybe just the last thing, you talked a bit about what are the right conditions for accelerating this, and we have this word together in the theme of the conference. Tell me a little bit about what those conditions like, and maybe partnerships and
partnerships are key. I mean, I think we talk a little bit about kind of supply chain. We talk a little bit about our clients, and we talk about about governments and where governments are going. I think the piece that joins all that is partnership, and it's to create those win-win scenarios where everybody gets a chance to win. I think for our clients, there's an understanding that they need to continue to invest back into the supply chain, and what that means is that whole traditional piece of lowest acceptable technical lowest bid, moving away from that model to a more partnership piece, understanding where technical excellence pays a premium, and understanding that premium that our clients pays that goes to supply chain gets invested back into providing solutions to them as well. So understanding that partnership model is really important. I mean, we just signed an agreement with OMV here as well. It's about the circular economy. It's about understanding the technology that they have and the part that we can play to help them scale and bring it to something that's a lot broader than what we could do as individual parties. Partnerships are key. Partnerships will always continue to be the center of what we need to do. But again, I think our job as Wood is always about making and solving the problems that our clients have, right? Coming up with solutions, pragmatic pioneers. And I think that's the beauty of the journey that we're on at the moment, is that understanding that as we're doing that, as we're helping to take our place and saving the planet and leaving it in a better place than we found it coming after it, but understanding that it's okay to make a profit doing that as well, but understand that profit gets invested back into our people, right? And that helps to create and innovate the solutions that our clients and the world still needs.
You represented the supply chain on this panel today. I'm curious, as somebody deep, as a CEO of the supply chain, are you in an optimistic or pessimistic place as we look forward?
I'm in a hugely optimistic place. I mean, when you look where we are, I mean, look, us just purely from a Wood standpoint, I mean, we're growing everywhere. We're growing in all our geographies. Even here, I was just talking to our head of P&O, that in a year we've grown from 800 people to 1,400 people here, which is just a fantastic kind of testament of the growth vector that we're on. That replicates across almost all of our geographies globally and all of our end markets. So what does that mean? It means the strategy that we've embarked on last year is the right strategy. It means that we are growing as a company, which means that our clients understand how important we are to them on the journey that they're on. So look, I think the opportunity for us from Wood is huge. I think the opportunity for the industry is huge. I would say we're looking at the next 5 to 10 years of continued growth.
Excellent. Ken, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks, Colin.